Hi, everyone, and welcome to Women of a Particular Age podcast, where we discuss women's views, life lessons, and a little bit of sugar honey iced tea. I'm Tara.
I'm Heather.
Hi, Heather. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
Good. I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired. I had a nice little night with my daughter. My daughter has her own taco business, and because she did pretty good. We were there pretty late, and it was cold out there. My bones were aching, and I was really, really tired, which is going to evolve us into our subject, which has to do with menopause. But before we do that, what do we do before we get started?
We toast.
Okay. All right. Let's make sure we
Cheers,
toast.
my friend.
Okay. Great, 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 great. Okay. So, for anyone who doesn't know what the definition of menopause is, it's a natural decline in reproductive hormones when a woman reaches between the ages of 40 and 50 years old. The first year of menopause, it starts to slowly fade, and then it could be for some women a 3-year duration. So now for me, I started menopause, I would say about 50, exactly 50 years old. And then I would say the first year, my period began to fade. And then in the years following, it slowly stopped. And then that's when I started the signs of menopause. When did it start for you, Heather?
Well, I started with perimenopause right after I had my second child, and
Hmm.
I was 38 years old.
Okay.
I started having symptoms, and then it was probably several years later that I actually went into full menopause. So
Oh,
I went into
wow.
menopause at
Okay.
a very young age. Well, I mean, younger probably than the average person. It just depends on the person. Like
Yes.
for me, it was around 42 years old,
Yes.
and that came with a lot of symptoms.
Yes. And now we're going to discuss the symptoms because,
So some of the
folks, we want you
symptoms
to
that I
know.
experienced were those. Ooh, ooh, mm,
Oh, so let me. So we're going to discuss the symptoms. So some of the symptoms that we have on the list are painful intercourse, fatigue, night sweats. Um, for some people, osteoporosis, hot flashes, sweating, insomnia, loss of hair, anxiety, dry skin, irritability, moodiness, reduced sex drive. Now, I can tell you, for me, out of all of these, I would say I had the night sweats for sure. For sure, I had hot flashes. I still have them from time to time. Um, and I am going to tell you, as far as the osteoporosis, I always laugh with you, Heather. I always tell you that I have that one bad Barbie arm where you can't lift it over your head. For some reason,
yeah.
right when menopause started for me, one day I just woke up and that arm just became painful. It just hurts. So, Heather, tell me about some of your symptoms.
Well, I definitely had hot flashes and
Hmm.
night sweats. It was really bad. Like at night, oh my gosh, it was just absolutely awful. I would use ice packs. I
Yeah.
would pack, ice packs, and I would also use those packs that you put in the freezer. So I put it behind
Yes.
my neck, under my
Wow.
arms, under my knees. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
so I could sleep because I just could not sleep. I did reduce. I wasn't a big caffeine drinker, but I noticed if I
Yes.
drank a little bit more caffeine, it kind of fueled
Hmm.
it a little bit. But I did
Yeah.
have them, and and I would get hot flashes, like at work. Like I would just start getting hot, and everybody's cold. They're like, "Oh, I'm so cold," and I would be, "Oh my gosh, I'm so hot," and everybody's like, "No, it's cold." I'm like, "Oh no, yeah." Having those hot flashes, in public, at work, it was like, "Oh my god." So, if at work, if I had a choice of where I could sit, they would say, "Oh, pick where you want to sit." I always try to pick one that had a vent above my head,
Yes,
right, so I
yes,
could get the cool air
yeah. We want to
on.
stay cool, girl, because we
Yes,
get hot.
and yeah, trouble
Woo.
sleeping. Yeah, trouble sleeping, and I did have joint pain, like what you would
Uh,
call tennis elbow and stuff
yes,
like that. I don't know if it was
yeah,
associated
yeah,
with
yeah.
what I
And
was
I have
going
frozen
through,
shoulder.
but yeah, just yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very yeah. Menopause sometimes cannot be so nice to you, um, and so the other thing is. And the other thing is, I had heard of back then when I was going through menopause. I mean, there
Uh-huh.
was things over the counter that you could take. One of them was this thing called black cohosh. It's a very
Uh-huh.
popular thing, but I did ask my doctor because before you take anything over the counter or ask for a prescription, always check with your doctor.
Yes.
And I did take it, but I personally felt like it did not help me. Some people
Okay.
say it did. I was one of those people. It did not help.
Well, you know what I was going to tell everybody is that they do have options of you doing hormone treatment. You can do stuff over the counter, but what I would suggest, folks, because I wouldn't want, because I'm not a medical person, I don't want to tell you anything here or there. Please go ahead and
Hmm.
investigate it on your own and see what would be best for you. And please make sure you speak to your doctor before you start anything. Okay. So, all right. So let's do this.
Hmm.
Let's go ahead and let's switch gears from that. So, folks, I wanted you guys to know that me and Heather actually looked at a movie as of late, and the movie was called Woman of the Hour. It's on Netflix. It's an hour and 35 minutes. Okay. And the premise of the movie is in the 1970s, Los Angeles, a wave of murders made headlines. And there's this young guy. His name is Rodney Akala. It was riveting. How he was going around, and what he was doing is he was a serial killer, and he was just listen. We're gonna really get into it. But there was a young woman aspiring to become an
Hmm.
actress in this movie, and because it's her and the serial killer, they came across each other's paths in this dating game. She just luckily missed not being a one of his subjects or a person that was going to become unalived. Now, where this starts is in 1977. The Woman of the Hour opens with Rodney Akala's murder of a pregnant young woman in Wyoming after he photographed women. Now, this was one of the things that was interesting that me and Heather talked about. This man would photograph his subjects before he would unalive them, and they were just in the worst, not the worst way, but the with the weirdest poses, different places he took them. Heather, remember we talked about that? Didn't you find that odd?
It was very odd, and so he, took pictures of women with the premise that
Yes.
he was a professional photographer slash talent
Hmm.
agent, and
Yes.
yes, and he was a very uh, like a smooth talker,
He knew Heather. He
superficially
knew
charming.
exactly what to say, right? He knew exactly what to say all the time.
Yes, he knew what to say, and some of the victims, and because I did a little research into this,
Hmm.
got the creeps from him, but did not follow. Many of them did not follow their intuition because they felt, oh, why am I'm getting these vibes, but he seems nice enough, right?
But
Because
Heather, but
he was
if
a
folks, if you guys watch the
manipulator.
movie, if you guys watch the movie, he's very, very believable. You still get the
Yes.
creep vibes. You get the creep vibes from him. But for some reason,
Mm,
he's able to still lure people in. And he did it consecutive times. It didn't matter if it was a woman, it didn't matter if it was a man. And there was a couple of times it didn't matter if they were young people. Okay, maybe women or men, but they
right.
were young. We're talking about teenagers. He was an equal
Yeah.
opportunity employer when it came down to that. But now we're going to switch gears because now getting farther into the movie, in 1978, the movie leaps forward to Cheryl Bradshaw's life in Hollywood, and to the year close to where her and Rodney Akala made their appearance on a dating game. So, folks, what happens is you have Cheryl Bradshaw, who is an actress trying to make it in Hollywood, and she's taking all these odd jobs, which she ends up on the dating game. And then this is where me and Heather talked about it. Now, Heather, when they got to the date, but even when they got to the dating game and how they met, Heather, take us after that. What happened after that?
Well, are you talking about while they're on the show or after the show?
No, no, no. What happened is after the show. I don't know if it was after the show. If you recall, they went to dinner. Yes, take us there.
Yes, they went. Yes, yeah. So she they met out at the studio, and
Correct.
he said, hey, let's go out, have a drink or something. She
Yes.
seemed very reluctant
Yes.
about it,
And
but she
folks,
thought,
and folks,
oh
just so
gosh,
you know,
okay, well,
sorry, Heather. Folks, just so you know, this is after she won the dating game and she won a date with him. So I just want to make sure that you understand that. The reason why they're going out, or not going out right
yeah,
now, but the reason why they're engaging with each other is because she won a date with him on a dating game. Sorry, Heather. I just because I didn't set that up right. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew.
right, right. No, that's okay. So he was really kind of setting up the opportunity. Hey, we just won this date.
Yes.
Let's get to know each other. Let's go have a drink.
Yes. Yes.
And she's kind of reluctant, but he was very persistent. So she decides and she goes and with him. They go to the bar.
Yeah.
She pretty much told him, I don't really date. She had a drink with him. Then he
Mm-hmm.
wanted to order another round, and she told him, no, you know what? No, I think one
Yeah.
drink is fine. But
Yes.
she could tell by the look I had that he was not happy with her declining a second
He's very
drink.
pushy, very pushy.
Very pushy. He's a manipulator. He's
Yes.
almost like trying to feel guilty, but I mean, she has no reason to feel guilty. She just met this guy on the show. I mean, she has every
Yeah.
right to say that's it. I'm done. I'll see you
Yeah.
later. On that. So I just thought that was just really weird. And then I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, isn't that when they return back to the parking lot?
Yes.
Do they
And folks,
return
let me
back to
tell
the
you,
parking
thanks,
lot?
Heather. That's when they return
Yes.
to the parking lot. And just so you know, that's when it starts to speed up and the weird vibes get really creepy. Because you can tell she's wanting to tell him good night, but he's not wanting the night to be over. So he actually follows her to the car. And thank God people came out of the studio because she could have been the next victim. She really could have been the next victim.
Yeah,
Okay.
she got very fortunate with those people coming out because it just broke up that tense moment because
Yeah, that
she told
weirdness.
them she
Oh
didn't want to
gosh.
be walking
Yes.
in the car
Yes.
several times. And the way he was walking behind her, it was really creeping her
Mm-mm.
out like, oh, this just a very bad thing. Even you're kind of like, oh my God, I hope she gets in the car and tries to, but then those people came out and that's
Yes.
what
Very suspenseful right then and there.
Ver yes. Yeah, you felt like, "Oh gosh, you dodged that one."
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Mhm.
So listen, folks, let me tell you, because we don't want to tell you, because there's still a lot of meat to this movie, but we don't want to tell you everything. Okay. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on the movie, and I'm gonna let you know I'm so happy that Heather's here always because she does a little bit more digging into it than we'll be able to discuss. What I'm gonna tell you is I like the movie for what it taught us, for what it told us about this man in particularly. But as far as the content, I hated it because he was a master manipulator. He really unalived a lot of people more than what was stated, and that's what Heather's going to get into. Um,
Mhm.
there was a couple of times he probably could have been caught. He slipped through the cracks. Okay, but the movie is awesome. I would suggest you see it. So, Heather, tell us what you thought of the movie, and then listen, give us a little bit more meat and potatoes because I know you're our court person, and I know that you got a little bit more, and we can discuss it.
Oh yes, I definitely have more. Definitely looked
Okay.
into Ronald Alcala beyond this movie just to get a little bit more background on him. So
Yes.
um, he, yeah, his mo was telling people he was a photographer, but as a
Yes.
professional photographer, talent agent. But he really
Yes.
worked at the LA Times, not as a reporter, but as a typesetter.
What is
Okay.
the typesetter?
And there was a scene, a typesetter. Well, the typesetter is not, has nothing to do with like reporting or anything like that. It's probably setting up the
Oh,
material that's going to come out. You know, it's already, the
really?
information's already there, and he's just putting, yeah. So he wasn't a
Okay.
reporter and he wasn't a professional photographer. He just did that because, that's how he
To lure
lured
people
his
in.
victim. Yes, and
Lure 'em in.
there's a scene there that you and I, Tara, have talked about, where he pulls out this huge album of men and women, and he shows it to the coworkers, and uh, it was very alarming because it's not like a professional photographer, like wedding pictures or at a
Right. Very
special
creepy.
event. These are people in everyday settings, out in the mountains, out somewhere, or maybe like in his
Yes.
apartment. And even the vibe of the people that were there, you could tell by the look in the movie, they were kind of
Yes.
like getting a little creeped out, like, oh, this is weird. I thought he was like a photographer, professional,
Yes.
taking photos.
The,
These are people that they didn't know were being victimized. And yeah, it
yes.
was just very weird.
And you know what,
Yes.
Heather? The
Okay,
pictures
so
were very odd. They were very odd pictures. Um, Folks, I'm
very,
telling you, you really
yes.
got to go see this movie. If you could see the pictures, and you will, if when you go see the movie, if you could see the way,
Hmm.
because we have to call them victims, because most of them were victims. If you could see the way
Yes.
he propped them and primmed them. The pictures were just it was just really creepy, and you would try to understand in your mind why would somebody bring them to work to show other people. But then guess what? It kind of tells you who he was as a guy. So now, Heather, listen, let's find out what you
Yes.
thought about the
Mhm.
movie, and then let's go ahead and let's
Oh
give
yes.
them a little bit more deeper background of what you found out
Yes.
that
Okay.
wasn't in this movie.
Okay. Yes. So a couple of things. As far as the movie, I like the movie, but
Hmm.
I believe that this movie could have been like 3 episodes to really
Really?
cover more of the victims and the murders
Uh-huh.
and more about his background. Okay,
Ooh.
so
So tell us
because there's
about
a
his
lot of
background. Tell us
things.
what you found out.
Okay, okay, so all right, so let me tell you about that. So let's see here. So he was raised in San Antonio, Texas,
Okay.
with his mom and father. And he had 2 siblings, 2 sisters.
Okay.
Okay, the father ended up leaving the family and just left them. He just abandoned his family and left. Well,
Hmm.
yes, he
Odd.
off. Never came back. So the mother decided to take her 3 kids to California and kind of,
Okay.
restart, their life there.
Yes.
And so once he's a little older, he decides that he's going to go into the army. And he does go there and he spends several years there, probably like around 3 years. He wanted
Okay.
to be a paratrooper, but he actually was a clerk, you know. And then he
Okay.
goes AWOL and he leaves. And so the army ends up finding him, right? And so they brought, I guess, they met with him and they discharged him uh, due to mental illness. They
Okay. So
diagnosed him
stop right
with
there. Stop right there.
anti.
So wait a minute. So wait a minute. So that he was discharged because of mental illness. So is this the first time that we're hearing about the mental illness?
Yes, this is the first time. that I
Okay.
yes, that you're hearing about his mental illness, like officially,
Okay.
like he's given a diagnosis that someone, a mental health provider, and the army interviewed him and
Okay.
realized that he had antisocial personality disorder. So
Ooh.
they ended up discharging him from there, and then he ends up going to school, and then for fine arts, he ends up
Okay.
graduating from
Okay.
there and doing that.
All
And
right.
from there, it just takes a whole different vibe. I mean, he becomes the serial killer. And
Wow.
something that I found out was, so there's 7 murders that
Uh
he
huh.
got tried for, but there's
Okay.
one case of this little 8-year-old girl, and I did
Ooh.
watch another show, and I got the story on that one because you're not going to hear it there. This one was a little girl, 8 years old. She was walking to school.
Uh huh.
Rodney was driving his car,
Yeah.
and he was talking to the little girl. He was trying to lure her in his car, and this
Yes.
bystander was driving by, and he actually noticed this, but he thought it was, I don't know why, but he thought it was very odd. He's like, this little
Yes.
girl and this guy talking, and then she gets into the back seat of his car, not the front, the back seat, because he lures her saying, oh, I'm going to take you to school. So this good Samaritan calls the police and says, hey, I just saw this car, gave a description, everything. He follows them, and he says, I'm outside here waiting. He's just brought her in the house. I'm really concerned because he looks like he just picked up
Wow.
this girl. Yes. So what happens is the police get the call and they come out. When
Yes.
they go knock at the door, Rodney comes peeps. First of all, he wasn't opening the door, but they were knocking. They knew he was there. They could see a silhouette. So he comes to the
Yes.
door, but he's naked and he has the door partially open. And he said, oh, yes. And they said, well, we need to come in. And he goes, well, I just got out of the shower. And they could tell that he wasn't in the shower because he wasn't wet and he didn't have a towel. So they said,
Ooh.
no, we need to come in right now. So when they go in, okay, the little girl was found dead, dead, blood everywhere. Rodney Alcala escapes out a window, and the cop had to make a decision. Do I go run after this guy, or do I try to save this poor little girl? So
Okay.
he
So
makes a
Heather,
decision.
so what you're
I got to
telling me
take
is,
care of the girl. And
so
I
what you're telling me is that when they got there, the little girl was unalived already.
yeah, well, that's what the police thought. Okay,
Yes.
because he wasn't seeing respiration or that she was breathing, but
Yes.
Rodney had put a bar across her neck. Okay, I guess he kept this bar that he would lock his door, like when he had victims or people over, he would lock it so they couldn't escape.
Yes.
And he had put that bar and kind of strangled her. So the policeman took that bar off, and then it
Yes.
relieved the pressure, and the little girl started breathing. So guess what? She
Oh.
survived. She
Okay. Okay.
survived, but she didn't go. Her parents didn't want her to testify in court. Okay, when they were doing another case, they didn't want her to go, and it wasn't until there was a third trial that she was already a grown woman, a woman of a
Yeah.
particular age, where she
Yeah.
went and she told her story, and he ended up getting, charged for murder, and she was beaten, assaulted, and she was raped at the age of 8. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, so but she's a survivor. But she's a survivor. But this, like I said, I found out about this one because I saw another show that went
Yes.
more into details about this little girl. So she was a grown woman, and she was just happy to be alive. And there was another lady that had an encounter. I saw her on
Yes.
the Tamron Hall show, and
Yes.
she wrote a book, and she told her story, and was very interesting. Same thing. She got lured. she was saying, God, this guy's a creep, but I just feel like, oh, like,
Yes.
okay, take my picture. Okay, we'll go to the
Well, yeah,
rooftop
but
where
you
he
know, he had
lives.
that kind
And then
of
it just became
or he had an aura to him where he was like that. He was weird,
yeah.
but for some reason he still got people. He still was able to lure them in.
But it was weird because when they went to the rooftop and they came back down, I guess they went to his place and she went in and
Yes.
and I guess he ended up disrobing and then she got weirded out and then she's like, oh, I got to go. So she
Yes.
leaves and she realized she left a book that she had bought, I think for her brother. And she says, I have to
Yes.
go in there and get the book because
Oh
then my
no.
dad's gonna because she was supposed to meet her dad at the hair salon for a haircut. She goes, I have
Yes.
to go because if he doesn't see me with the book, then he's gonna ask me where I was. Girl,
Yes.
she goes back in there and
She
knocks
went
on the door and
back,
says, oh,
even though
I
it
left
was
my book. I
weird.
have to get it. Yes, yes. She ran to the book and she ran
No.
out as fast as she could. And she
Did
lived
she
to
get out of
tell the
there?
story. And she was on Tamron Hall. She got out of there,
Woo!
girl, with the book.
She's listen, she's very
Yes,
lucky
and she never told
because
that story.
this dude was no
She
joke.
did
He
never
was
told
no
that
joke.
story to nobody. No. There's a lot.
Mm-mm.
Like I said, there's more to this Rodney Akala and his background and his stories.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just,
I, I think that
yeah, it's
people
very
should really
disturbing.
go and see this movie because I thought it was good. I thought it was good. Um, of course, the unaliving I couldn't tolerate. I,
Yes,
because just because of some of the
right.
victims, and he just didn't care, especially when they were young. It was just hard to deal with. But overall, I did think that the movie was good. It was informative, so I did appreciate the movie. So I did appreciate
Yes,
the movie for
and
sure.
yes, and there was one thing in the movie which was fictional. They
Uh huh.
had a black woman who was a person that was watching, was part of the audience of the dating game, and she went with her
Hmm.
boyfriend, and I think with his parents or I think it was his parents. And when she saw Akala, Rodney
Yes.
Akala on the stage, she freaked out and she ends up leaving. And her boyfriend was like, "Where are you going? Where are you going?" She recognized him because she had gone to some sort of beach party with a friend, and I guess her
Yes.
friend ended up going missing and was dead. And then it shows her coming back later at a later time, that same evening, wanting to meet with the producer to tell him or her that this
Yes.
person is a killer, is a dangerous person, because they didn't
Yes.
do background checks on that film.
Correct.
So
That's right.
that was fictional. That was fictional. They put that there, but they said that it sounded like these particular cases there were people reporting this guy, but nothing was really getting done, other than, of
Okay.
course, if somebody was unalived, right?
Okay.
Like it
Yes.
was like, oh, okay, we don't have too much to go on. Oh well. And I'm going to add this one thing because I think it's really
Okay.
important. At the time, the what is it? The Night Stalker in Los
Yes.
Angeles, when that was
Yes.
going on, he he was interviewed as a possible suspect. Just to let you
Mm,
know, he was a convicted. Yeah, he had felonies, and he was someone that they had approached, questioned, but it wasn't him. It was um, that other person. But so he had quite a background on there, and I just wish he would have been stopped sooner.
yeah.
Not hurt
Well, yeah.
all these people. I mean, and that little girl too. But luckily
Yeah.
she's alive, and that other girl too. She was really lucky to be alive, and she realizes that.
Folks, all I'm going to tell you guys is
Yeah.
if you get a chance, please go see Netflix Women of the Hour. It's only an hour and 35 minutes. It did come out in 2023. It's an excellent movie. It'll give you more in-depth information about Rodney Akala and how he was, who he was as a person. I mean, you'd really, really like the movie. I'm telling you, you'd like it. So listen, Heather, as always, my friend, thank you so much. I appreciate you joining me this evening. Everybody else, we
Thank
appreciate you
you.
joining us. Okay. So listen, please,
Thank
before you
you,
leave, like,
everyone.
share, and just subscribe. If you have some comments of the show, you want to see some things, see of some different topics, please let us know because we're open to it. For name that tune, I just want you guys to know I'm telling you guys in front of Heather. Then Heather, the next time we do name that tune, it's gonna be all 70s. So everybody out there, because Heather 70s happens to be Heather's favorite, and it is mine as well. We'll be doing all 70s, okay? So listen, folks, we do appreciate you joining us on this ride this time. Okay. So once again, we are women of a particular age. I'm Tara. This is my good friend Heather. And thank you so much. And guess what? Heather, we'll see him next Friday.
Yes.
Okay. All right, folks. We'll see you
Mm-hmm.
next Friday.
That's right.
Take care.
Yes.
Have a good one. Bye.
Peace. Bye. I love our intro and outro.